For 70 years, we believed the Dead Sea Scrolls belonged to the people of Qumran, but new AI handwriting forensics, DNA testing, and a forgotten trail of history suggests something far more dramatic. These scrolls weren't written here. They were hidden here, as a last attempt to save a culture on the edge of extinction. This is the standard hypothesis, the story told in every textbook, that in the remote Qumran desert, an isolated monastic cult of Essenes spent their lives meticulously writing and copying these 25,000 fragments, a library of their own making. It was a clean, simple story, but it had problems. One artifact in particular made no sense. 3Q15, the copper scroll. It wasn't a religious text. It was a treasure map, written on oxidized copper, listing 64 locations where tons of gold and silver were buried. This artifact created a paradox. The Essenes, as described by historians like Josephus, were ascetics. They renounced worldly possessions. Why would a humble, isolated cult, dedicated to poverty, possess a detailed map to a king's ransom? It was the first clue that the standard hypothesis was flawed. But for decades, this anomaly was ignored or explained away until modern forensics opened the 70-year-old case file. The first new expert to testify was not human. Researchers at the University of Groningen applied cutting-edge artificial intelligence to the most famous scroll, the Great Isaiah Scroll. They fed the AI one simple task: analyze the handwriting. The AI analyzed the digital fingerprint of the writing, the stroke angles, the pressure, the subtle variations invisible to the human eye. The assumption was, one scribe wrote this masterpiece. The AI's conclusion: two scribes, two different hands, working in near-identical styles. This shattered the lone monk hypothesis. This suggested a workshop, a professional school of scribes, something far more organized and standardized than a small, isolated cult. The second team, from Tel Aviv University, didn't look at the ink. They looked at the medium itself, the animal skin. They extracted ancient DNA from the parchment fragments to find out what kind of animals were used. Most scrolls were sheepskin, common to the desert. But then, the data revealed a shocking anomaly: cowhides, taurus. Cows are not desert animals. They were raised in massive numbers in one place, the urban center of Jerusalem, for the temple rituals. The DNA analysis didn't just find cows. It found that different fragments of the same text were written on genetically distinct sheep. This means the texts were not produced in one location but were sourced from different flocks, different herds, different places, and then assembled later. This was the smoking gun. The scrolls weren't all local products of Qumran. This DNA proof showed, unequivocally, that scrolls were being brought to Qumran from the city. The standard hypothesis was dead. So, if Qumran isn't the monastery, the factory, what is it? The new theory, first proposed by Norman Golb and now supported by AI and DNA, is far more dramatic. Qumran wasn't a factory. It was a lockbox. It was a kettet, a hidden deposit, a safe house. The scrolls weren't one library, but many libraries, from different scribal schools. The two scribes, from different locations, the cow DNA, all brought to this remote location for one reason: safekeeping. This theory suggests the scrolls were the official libraries of Jerusalem, perhaps even from the temple itself, evacuated as the Roman armies advanced. The diversity makes sense: texts from Sadducees, Pharisees, and yes, probably Essenes too. A snapshot of the entire faith, not just one sect, but safekeeping from what? Look at the history. The scrolls were hidden around 70 AD. This is the exact year the Roman legions, led by Titus, besieged and utterly destroyed Jerusalem, burning the Second Temple to the ground. This wasn't a monastic ritual. This was an evacuation, a desperate, frantic act to save the entire intellectual and spiritual heritage of a culture on the brink of extinction. These aren't the scrolls of Qumran. They are the last survivors from Jerusalem. And suddenly, the copper scroll makes sense. It wasn't a monk's fantasy. It was the temple treasury list. They weren't just hiding their books. They were hiding their treasure, hoping to one day return. The evidence suggests the operation was successful. The scrolls were hidden. The Romans never found them, but the final tragic piece of the story is the silence. No one ever came back. The people who hid this treasure, this knowledge, died in the war, taking the secret of the lockbox with them. The Dead Sea Scrolls are not the legacy of a single, strange cult. They are the collective memory of a nation, rescued from the fire. They are a time capsule, born from the universal human fear of oblivion, the fear that our knowledge, our stories, will be erased. This is the new case file on the Dead Sea Scrolls, closed by faith, reopened by forensics. What other historical cold cases should AI and DNA investigate next?